It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Spider-Man, Burn Off the Dark, Shakespeare in Central Park, and Klein Daly in Masterclass. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle.
Good evening. I'm the aforementioned Charles Gross.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake. Good evening. We're going to talk about two Shakespeare plays that are being done in the park right now.
Yes.
And they're being done in rep, which means that the same actors play a variety of roles in both shows, which is sometimes a very good thing and sometimes not. And I'm going to mention that too.
Okay.
I'm going to be talking about All's Well That Ends Well,
Okay.
which is a line that's actually spoken by a character named Helena in All's Well That
Yes,
Ends
it is.
Well. And it's to justify something that she's going to do that's not very nice, and I'll talk about what that is in a minute. But her response, her rationale is, all's well that ends well, so no matter what we do, it's going to be okay.
Or the ends justify the means.
But the ends justify the means.
Now,
And-
what is ending well for Helena?
well, okay,
Hopefully.
I just want to say one thing, that both
Yes.
plays share several things, and I can see now why they put them together. In the beginning, I didn't understand why they were paired, because it's all's well that ends well and measure for measure. And they both share a vice versus virtue theme. They both share
okay.
something you reminded me of, which is a forced marriage. I'd forgotten about that. They both have a bawdy best friend scenario going
Played
on.
by the same actor, I think.
Played by the same actor, which I'm going to talk about also, and they both have a somewhere in the workings of this, they have a bed switch. A bed partner gets switched in the dark.
And interestingly, the person who is switched in to do the deed is played by the same actress.
Who gets a much better part in All's Well than she has, I think.
Yes, well, that's the
in,
thing with repertoire. You could be playing the
Yes.
lead in one, and then you have a walk-on in the other. And who's that? Who plays? She plays Helena.
No, she doesn't play Helena.
Yes, she
That's not
does.
the same actress. Oh, you're talking about that.
Yes.
Okay. Helena is played by, you had to get me on that, Annie Paris.
Who in both plays
is the one
is
yeah,
sleeping with a
you're
man
right.
by pretending to be something else.
But all right. So anyway, her name is Annie Paris, and she's a leading character
Yes.
in All's Well. Let me give you a
Okay.
quick plot summary,
Real
as quick as I can. Helena is a very virtuous, but in this production almost spinsterish young woman who becomes the ward of the Countess after the death of her father, a noted physician.
Right.
She's enamored of Bertram, who's the profligate son of the Countess, who himself woos all and sundry except Helena. And who hears Helena is made to be sort of like Cinderella before the ball, not after the ball. She sits in a corner and makes cow eyes at Bertram. When the King of France, this play is set in France, or in Shakespeare's version of France.
John Cullum.
Yes, played by John Cullum, falls ill. Helena uses one of her father's remedies to cure him.
Right.
And as payment, he says you can marry anybody you want to in the kingdom. And guess who she wants to marry? The man she dotes on, who's Bertram.
The Countess's
And
son.
The Countess's
who is like her
son,
godmother.
who's like her brother.
Godmother.
No, but Bertram
the
is like
Countess,
her
the
brother.
Count-
They've been raised
Right.
together.
That's-
and he sort of goes, what do you mean?
That's why I was calling the Countess the godmother. Yes, okay.
Okay, what do you mean? I'm a count. Bertram is a count. I'm a count, and you're going to marry me to this nothing of a woman? And the king says, it's my will. So Bertram says, fine, I'll marry her. But I won't wed her, I won't bed her, I won't stay with her. And he marries her and he goes off to war in the king's army.
He will not accept her as his wife until she is carrying his child and wearing his ring.
Yes, okay. All right.
That's
good.
very
Okay.
important.
So anyway, Bertram goes off to war, followed by his best friend Parolles. Now, Parolles is a blowhard. He is a coward. He's always at the back, the farthest back point you can be in any march that happens. He's not going to fight for anybody. He's always where it's safest. While in wherever they go to do this battle, Bertram falls in love with a very chaste woman named Diana, who refuses to succumb to any of his so-called charms. And by the way, Bertram has no charms. Andre Holland, who plays him, gives him charm just because he's a charming young actor. But he has he's just a wretched young guy. And usually he's not played as nicely as Andre plays him. I think Andre gives him a little something that's...
I think the problem here is...
Well, can I finish telling the story, and then
by
you
all
can say
means.
what the problem is? So Helena comes, there's so much in this play. Helena comes posing as a pilgrim to the battlefront to try to find Bertram to make sure he's okay, because she hasn't heard from him. And she stops at the inn, owned by Diana's mother, of course, and then it finds out that Bertram has made advances to Diana, and together they cook up a plot so that Helena can get Bertram back, she thinks. They decide that they will do one of these bed switch things where Helena will make believe Diana will make believe she's going to go to bed with Bertram, but it's going to be Helena in bed with him, actually. And
Helena being the girl who's trying to get Bertram to fall in love
I thought
with
I
her.
made that
Okay.
clear. Anyway,
Okay.
so
Shakespeare is confusing.
now, this is nowhere near Dan Sullivan's work in Merchant of Venice, who did this. It was the same director, and maybe the second act comes a little closer to being a really good act. The
Yes.
first act is just a mess, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't find casting-wise, Tanya Pinkins, who plays a bawd in the other show that you'll talk about, is here cast as a countess, and she is not a countess by anybody's stretch of the imagination. Her son, Bertram, is definitely a royal blood. You can see that. John Cullum makes a great king, as we've already said. He does any kind of wonderful work for an actor who's 80 years old, and he's great in both plays. Reg Rogers plays Parolles, and he plays the same character as Lucio in the other play.
Pretty much, yes.
I liked him better in All's Well, if I had to judge between the two, but it's the same exact acting job.
I think in Measure for Measure, he's a lot more annoying, and his character is a lot more annoying. In fact, they try and take him down a peg or two.
Well, all in all, it's
Measure.
prettily staged. It's not to my liking. I would give it 3 playbills at the most. Derek Jacobi did a version that they brought here, directed by Trevor Nunn about 10, 15 years ago. It was done at Circle in the Square.
It was not.
It was gorgeous.
It was not Derek.
It was Derek Jacobi.
No. You're thinking Trevor Nunn. I think he directed a different version without Derek Jacobi. And
this was a very Chekhovian, very autumnal. It was all browns and grays, and you got this very sad, overwhelmingly sad. Well, anyway,
maybe there were 2 different, because I think I saw one with Trevor Nunn, which I absolutely despised.
Okay.
And I like this one much better. I agree with you. The second act is much better than the first act. I also agree that the Helena looks very spinsterish. But
you don't blame Bertram that much for not wanting her.
You know, you're torn, because normally when we get into this sort of thing, you know, it's, an arranged marriage? No, we have to marry for love. And this is why this is considered one of Shakespeare's quote-unquote, problem plays.
Well, these are both problem plays.
And so the fact that we do kind of root for Helena, at least I was.
Well, you have to root for her. That's the way it's written.
Yes, shows that Shakespeare does manage to pull it off. Yes, this is not the Merchant of
But I've
Venice.
always seen Helena played by an attractive girl. So the idea is that Bertram is a cad. If she's an unattractive woman, if she's a little older perhaps even than Bertram, and this one looked older than Bertram, then she's not so much a cad, because it's like, who wants to marry her anyway? So I think that was
and that was interesting, because I have to
a-
agree with you on that. And this woman's going to be horribly typecast. Yes, my specialty is sleeping with men who think I'm someone else. In the dark.
Well, she looked better in the second play.
She looked much better in the second play. In Measure for Measure.
This was a choice. I don't agree
that's,
with it.
And you know what? I agree with you also. I think she should look better. Well, maybe she's a talented actress, which she is. But I think she should look prettier, and I think we should, because it's hard enough to side with her to begin with. I mean, who wants to be in a forced marriage? You can't really blame the guy. And yet... Well,
but you can blame him because...
Well, you can blame him because he's saying, well, she's a commoner. Well, the king is saying, I can raise her.
That's right.
I can do that, I'm the king.
That's right.
Okay. Well, Measure for Measure has a lot of the same people in it. This is actually a play I'd never seen. And I disagree with you about Vice, All's Well That Ends. I think the topic here is you have romance here, and the thing that ties them together is you have 2 cases of a romance where the man does not want the woman, and she eventually gets him by...
Well, Measure for Measure is about vice versus virtue.
Measure for Measure, yes. All's Well That Ends Well is not.
Well, all right, you stretched it a bit.
I think, yes, I think you were. And this is basically, in Vienna, the Duke is going on a vacation, and he leaves his lieutenant in charge with orders. He says, listen, we have vice laws here. I want you to enforce them. And he does. And that means that any couple having relations outside of marriage, the man gets killed. I don't know what happens to the woman, apparently.
She went to prison.
Oh, okay.
So.
But the men get killed. And so Claudio has been basically, and has impregnated his fiancée, and he is caught. Get a room next time, buddy. Thrown off to jail.
Well, they were planning to be married.
On death row, and he sends a word to his sister, who was a apprentice nun,
a novice.
Novice, yes, to speak with the Duke's right-hand guy, and basically showing that this is the kind of story that would be so common today. But Shakespeare was well ahead of the game because Angelo, the Duke's lieutenant, falls in love with her and says, okay, I'll free him if you sleep with me. Which, talk about the height of hypocrisy.
Oh, absolutely.
In the meantime, the Duke isn't actually as far gone as we think. He's masquerading as a friar because he wants to see, A, how Angelo, his lieutenant, is going to do, and he wants to get a better idea of what's going on in his kingdom. And the actor playing him, he kind of has this Clark Kent Superman type. Yes. Yes, indeed. Hold on, we'll get to that. Yes,
who happens
that
to
is Lorenzo Pisciano, who I really think pulls it off very nicely. Again, the friar is Clark Kent, the Duke is Superman, and I will say that All's Well does end well in this play. Also, I actually enjoyed it. Oh, I think so. I enjoyed it much more than All's Well that Ends Well. All's Well that Ends Well, which the last time I saw it, I didn't like it. Here, I at least liked the second act. Here, I enjoyed it from start to finish. Again, maybe it's no Merchant, maybe it's no Hamlet, maybe it's no Romeo and Juliet, but it's still Shakespeare.
Could we talk about the ending a little bit?
We could talk about the ending.
Because what you have is the Duke insists that Isabella marry him, and in this particular version, I've seen it where they do like each other, and Isabella wants to be a nun. And she's horrified at the idea that she's going to have to marry the Duke. She doesn't know him. She doesn't want him. She liked the friar very much, but as a friar, as a nun would like a friar as a friend.
Well, here they changed that.
But what?
Here she seems to be okay with
No, not when I saw it. Not the night I saw it. She was acting as if she was horrified by the suggestion. By the way, this is a play that's been done in the park. I saw it with John Casale, the young man who died, and Meryl Streep. They were a boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. And I then saw a Caribbean version of it with, I'm trying to remember, I think it was the guy from, I don't remember. Anyway, Andre Braugher, perhaps. And so I've seen it many times. This was one of the least effective ones that I've ever seen.
This was my first time seeing it, and I did enjoy it. I would give it about 3.5. I would say All's Well that Ends Well, possibly, I guess about 3.
That's what I gave it. No, but this one I would give 2.
But you know what? It's just, I love going to the park and watching Shakespeare.
Oh, sure.